Hey guys, it's Ken from Cactus Jam Board Games. Today we're going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to start off with a scenario. And it goes something like this. Your partner comes to you and says, there's going to be a dinner party at our place this Saturday. You may or may not have known that that was going to happen, but now you're aware. At the dinner party, a couple people coming over would like to play a board game with us. They heard that we play, they're interested, they're curious, they'd like to give it a try. So the task that we're given by our partner is pick out a board game that we can introduce non-gamers to board gaming. So we need to pick out a game that we can get to the table, teach, and complete the playthrough in about 2.5 hours. So that's going to be our task today. We're going to talk about some of those games. We're going to talk about how to evaluate games for how appropriate they are to share with people who have never played a board game before. So grab a chair, join me at the table, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so our task today is to pick out a board game for these people that are coming over, the non-board gamers. We've got to introduce them to the hobby, and we've got to pick the right game. There's definitely some good choices out there. I've done this many times. I've got some choices that I want to talk about and share with you guys, but I'm also going to talk about how you evaluate the games. You know, which ones to choose. And if your collection of games doesn't overlap with mine, you know, how do you approach the games to make a decision about which ones to share with new gamers? So we're going to use 3 criteria. And the first one is the teach. We want something that's pretty straightforward that we can teach in just a few minutes, maybe tens of minutes, certainly no more than 20 minutes. So teach is quite important there. The other thing that we're looking for is complexity or weight. So on BGG, they rank all of their games on a 5-point scale, 1 to 5, with 5 being the heaviest, most thinky, burny type games. Those are the games that we definitely want to stay away from. We also want to stay away from the simplest games too, although I think a few of the games on my list are going to be on the simple end, pretty straightforward. So we're looking for something in between there. We can't have something too complicated, and we also don't want something too simplistic. So we're going to be talking about the weight of the game. On my scaling criteria, weight is given by a W or W value. The teach is given by a T value. And then the last criteria that we look for is the presence of the game on the table, the P value. So I think I've mentioned it in some of my previous videos that the game fills the table. It's got a great presence or a pop. It pops on the table. So those are the 3 criteria that we're going to use for our evaluations. And I think we can go ahead and just get started in the first game then. So let's give that a shot. Okay, so the first game that we're going to be talking about is Love Letters. Now, I mentioned before how we want a interesting game and a lot of presence and easy to teach. Well, when it comes to teaching, I'm going to give this game a score of 10. So it's very, very easy to teach Love Letters. The weight of the game is 8.8 on the scale that I'm using, 10 being ideal for our situation. This one's pretty close. The downside for this game is the presence. I'm only giving it a 1 out of 10. So the combined total appropriate score or combined score would be 19.8, which is good. It's almost 20, but the presence is what really hurts it. Because essentially it's just a card game. And it's a simple card game. I think there's only 16 cards total in the deck. If you get the newer version of the game, it introduces 2 new types of cards into play. Definitely worth it. The version I have is the older version. It is a great game. It's a wonderful game. It was first published in 2012. Currently, it's got a BGG ranking of 309, so it's still ranked pretty high. It's a very simple game. The object of the game is to have the highest ranked card at the end of each round. Each round where a player is able to do that, they collect a love letter. The goal for the game is to have 4 love letters by the end of it. The first person there gets the win. The teach is very, very straightforward. There's actually each player has a list of cards, a little help cheat sheet is sitting next to them, which walks them through all of the different cards and what they get to do. Play is simple. There's only one card in each person's hand. They draw one card. They compare the two cards they have. They place one face up in front of it, and they do that action. The other card goes face down. If a player is ever forced to reveal the princess, if they're holding that, they lose that round. They can also be knocked out for other reasons as well. It's either the last person standing or the person with the highest ranked card at the end of the round that wins. It's a very, very straightforward game. Very easy to play. I would recommend this if you recognize or see in the people who are playing somebody who's probably not interested in a more complicated game. This is a great place to start. I will also say that this is a game that I'll break out for our gaming group on a regular basis because it is so easy to play. It's a great opener or a great closer after a big day of games. So definitely a winner. Something to try to introduce people to board gaming in a very simple fashion. The next game we're going to be talking about is Flashpoint Fire Rescue. This is a fully cooperative game published in 2011. The BGG ranking currently is 418. As I said before, this is a fully cooperative game. So again, gauge your guests coming over. Does it look like do they want to stay clear of a smash mouth type of game where we're attacking one another, say a risk type game? If that's something they're not interested in doing, this is a great alternative. Everyone is on the same team. Everyone is a firefighter working to put out fires in a burning building. The teach is a 9. The strategy or weighting is a 7.8. And then lastly, the present. It's actually kind of cool. You got a house. The board itself is a map of a house. You got fire all over the place, smoke icons. You got these cool figures here that you're using for the firefighters. So everything about it is just kind of nifty, kind of cool looking at it. And if your guests have kids with them, say 8 years and older, this is definitely the game that I would break out, because when they see a game like this, they're going to get really excited about it. So my present score, I've got 2 values. I've got 6 for adults and I got 9 for kids. So your total or combined new game value or new game score value is 22.8 for adults, and I'm going to give it a 25.8 for kids. It's a very nice cooperative type game. The actions are really simple. Each person takes a turn. They get 4 actions to do stuff, move around, put out fires, chop holes through walls, rescue people. And then after their turn is done, then you roll dice for the fire to determine where the fire expands in the house. The goal of the game is to put out the fire and rescue, I think, 7 out of 10 people that are found in the house. If you're able to do that as a team, you win as a team. If you can't do it, then you lose as a team as well. So very straightforward game, nice cooperative game, great one to introduce people to board game as well. The third game on our list today is Concordia. This is a 2013 game release. Its current rank on BGG is 21, very highly ranked. It's a superb game. It's one of my favorite games. And it is one that I typically go to if I'm bringing new people into gaming. This is, if I know I got people who are truly interested in board gaming, I think this is a great choice. So the game itself plays, everyone is a trader in ancient Roman times, late in the Empire. So we're not dealing with combat here. There's no fighting. You can't punch each other. This is a true Euro style. Everything about it is maneuvering around your opponents. And also the mechanisms allow for some really interesting interplay as well. But let's go through the scores first before we get into the game. Teach, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It is eminently easy to teach this game. You break out the cards. Every player has the same cards in their hand, and you just walk the players through the cards that are in the hand to show them how to play. I can't give it a full 10 for the teach score because the end game scoring is something that is a little bit complicated. The board game designers actually recognize this, and they mention in the manual itself to do an intermediate scoring when the players first draw up their hand as a way of kind of showing them the process and how to score towards the end of the game. Clearly, it's an issue if the designers built that in for first-time players. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that I walk the players through that process several times throughout the game, so it's very clear what's going on. One thing that's really important too is oftentimes the players get caught up in the idea that their goal is to build warehouses throughout the Mediterranean. And that's part of the game for sure, and also getting the resources. But really why they're doing that is because they want to get those cards. The cards for end game scoring. That's really their goal, to get those cards into their hand so that they get the multiplier effect and maximize that as much as possible. But once that comes across and you're able to convey that to the players, you will see people going, oh, this is interesting. I definitely would like to give this a try. This game first came out around 10 years ago. It is still one of my favorite games. I played it around 10 years ago when it first came out. I got a copy as soon as possible, and I've played it ever since. I would play it anytime, anywhere. This is just a great game. And if it's not in your collection right now, go get it, because you're going to want it to be part of your collection as well. Okay, so that's Concordia, and let's move on to the last game. Okay, so the last game that we're going to be talking about today for introducing new players to board gaming, we got to go with Wingspan, right? So Wingspan is a 2019 release. The BGG ranking right now is 26. The teach I'll give this game is an 8 out of 10, and the reason is it is approachable as the game is and straightforward as it is. There are some complexities to it. This is not Concordia easy, and certainly nowhere near Flashpoint and especially Love Letters. There is more depth to this game. Some of the processes are a little confusing. You may see players having difficulty getting birds into a habitat based upon the criteria that they need to complete stuff, and you might have to walk the players through that. In addition, there's endgame scoring cards you have to choose up front. That can be complex as well. What I'll do oftentimes is place the 2 cards that I draw, place them face up, and I'll walk everyone through my thought process to why I'm going to choose one or the other. Possibly that contributes or helps it a little bit, helps other players getting started in gaming to understand what's going on with that end game scoring. So there are some aspects about it that are a little bit complicated, but I think it's worth it. I think the game is pretty good, and I've actually taught this game to people and have them beat me the first time they play. Evidently, I'm a very good teacher for these board games. They were able to pick it up pretty quickly and actually kick my butt. The alternative is I'm probably not very good at these board games as well. So that's Teach, 8 out of 10. The Present, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. That bird feeder is so cool. You know, the idea of rolling dice into that for food options. The artwork on the cards is lovely. Each player has their own journal book that they're working out of. Everything about it is just really quite nice, really lovely. Last is Weight, and the weight is 7.5. It's one of the lower ones here. The reason I'm giving it a score like that, well, I'm basing it off of BGG's weighting, and that's because, again, there are a lot of moving parts in the game. End game scoring, there's end round scoring, goals to shoot for, the process of getting birds in play, all the things that we've talked about already can be a little bit overwhelming. But again, go easy, go slow with your players, and I'm sure they're going to enjoy this game because it's really, really good. And it's just awfully fun to look at. It's really pretty. Along those lines, the playing pieces, I've got to just draw these guys out here. These little eggs, if you don't look at these the first time and think, boy, that sure does look like chocolate covered candy to me, I wonder what that tastes like, I'm going to say I'd be surprised if you don't think that way. I think it's pretty common. Most people, when they see those eggs, look at that. The only wonky bits would be the food discs, the little cardboard discs, but those could be upgraded to little plastic pieces to make it look kind of pretty. But overall, just a superb game. Definitely recommended. Definitely one to bring new gamers into the hobby with. So that's it with our discussion today for introducing new people to the hobby, which games to choose. We've covered 4 games: Love Letters, Concordia, Flashpoint, Fire Rescue, and then finally Wingspan. Talked about the strengths and weaknesses of each of these games for bringing new people to the hobby. Again, we're using that criteria of being able to teach the game, what sort of presence the game has on the table, how interesting it looks like for players to get into the game, and then finally the weight, how much brain power is going to be required to actually get into it. Again, some people are not going to be interested in expending a lot of energy, mental energy. Other people will jump right into it and really embrace it. These are just the first games that I'm going to do in a series of videos where we do this, where we introduce new gamers to the hobby. We've covered these 4 games. I think in the next video we're going to bring 4 or 5 new ones into it. We won't have to go into the detailed explanation of the criteria and how we pick these games. We'll just jump right into some games. Please let me know in the comments what you think about the games that we picked, and then what games do you use to teach people the hobby and get people involved with board gaming. These are just a handful that I have in front of me. There's plenty of other ones. I've heard some really interesting discussions on this topic with games that I'm frankly surprised that this is the game that they use to teach and bring people into the hobby, but I'm also really excited to hear that some of these games, and we can talk about that next time. Thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Thumbs up is always appreciated. Subscriptions are very, very helpful as well. Please leave a comment. It's certainly something that we can start a discussion about. I'm very much interested in hearing what you guys think about these games and what ideas you have for your games as well. So comments, thumbs, subscriptions, all appreciated. We'll see you next time. Bye now.